Hey everyone, it's Kenton Kivestu here, the founder of Rocket Blocks, and in today's Rocket Blocks mini lesson, we are going to be talking about the behavioral interview question, tell me about a time you fell short of achieving a key goal. Now, one quick side note before we jump into this particular phrasing of this question happens to be fell short of achieving a key goal, but this question could be asked in a bunch of different ways. For example, it might be tell me about a time you were working on a project that fell short, or tell me about a time you missed an important milestone, or fell short of a important company goal, or even tell me about a time you failed. So regardless of the particular phrasing you see, know that the 3 tips that we're going to be talking about, if you get a question like this, are going to be relevant for helping you really set yourself apart from your competition in interviews. So let's talk about 3 key tips for handling this question. Okay. First tip is we all know about the STAR model, right? Situation, task, action, results. It's a helpful model to keep in mind when you're answering behavioral interview questions. But if you get a question of this particular nature, where it's about falling short, not meeting milestones, etc., when you're talking about the situation, one of the things you want to spend some particular time defining is what were the obstacles that you faced. So in this particular image here, you've got a contestant in a game show called Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, running up this thing called the boulder dash, which is basically a big sort of chute where boulders come flying down and you have to avoid them. That's the obstacle that this particular guy faces. But what were the obstacles you faced in your scenario? What was the obstacle? How unpredictable was it? What's the severity of it? If it's something like, hey, like I was working on Project X with these type of goals to launch a new retail experience, and it was February 2020 and then COVID hit in March 2020, well, it's really important that you bring that obstacle to life because it's important to showing what happened in this particular scenario. Okay, so that's the first thing. Don't forget to give some description and some depth and some nuance to the actual obstacle or obstacles that you faced when you were going through whatever particular project was or moment where you ended up sort of falling short of where you wanted to get. Second is you want to showcase your problem-solving techniques. So the interesting thing about this question is it's really a different question wrapped up in the initial phrasing of it. And this question is really about what did you actually do when you were faced with some obstacles? People aren't just asking this question to see if you've fallen short in the past or failed or missed a deadline or a milestone or any of that. What they're trying to see is what happened under pressure. How did you react? What were the big obstacles that came in your way? And then how did you try and solve them? So everyone probably recognizes here we have the Ever Given, which was a boat that got stuck in the Suez Canal. I'm not going to go into the details of how exactly that happened. But I think it's illustrative, if you remember the process for trying to get this boat unstuck, of all the different ways they tried it. And that's something that you want to think about when you are answering this particular problem as well. So you want to show, hey, here are the obstacles that came up, and then here are the different things I tried to resolve those particular obstacles. You want to show how you sort of rotated the problem and attacked it from a bunch of different angles. Even if you ultimately fall short, you're still showing that you are persistent in different tactics and that you were creative in thinking about, here's a bunch of different ways I can tackle this problem, instead of just being like, well, this obstacle popped up and like, woe is me, but I'm not going to meet the deadline. That's a sort of like sad story. What you want is to show how you were proactive, persistent, and creative in tackling the problem in a bunch of different ways. So back to our Ever Given example. Here we see one of the tactics, which was trying to dig the boat out of the edge of the canal, which it hit. Later, they also tried, obviously, tugging it out. And then ultimately, I think it was some mix of digging and tugging with something like 5+ tugboats pushing on different sides of the boat to get it unlodged. Anyhow, the point is you want to really give some description and depth to the different problem-solving techniques to address the obstacles you faced, because those are the skills that your future employer really cares about. Third tip is lessons learned. So what are the lessons that you learned during this experience? At the very least, you should have learned some things that when faced with obstacle X, that this tactic isn't going to work. Hopefully, You also learned what might work. You know, if I were given more time, this tactic would have worked. Or if the scenario were slightly different, this would have worked well. Or, we could have done this. We could have pulled this lever, pulled that lever. And finally, some insight into when I face this type of obstacle or these type of obstacles in the future, here's my action plan. Here's how I'm going to tackle it based off everything I've learned. And if you think about that particular insight and phrasing it that way, that's really valuable because it gives your interviewer and your future employer some insight into what you've gained, skills, experience that you've gained in the past that they don't have to pay for, but are going to benefit from because you've had that experience somewhere else. And so you bring that to the table. Even though in this case you fell short, you've learned a bunch of things that you're going to be able to apply successfully if those type of situations arise at the new employer as well. And that makes you a really attractive and valuable candidate. Okay, so let's recap. First thing is spend some time detailing what was the obstacle or obstacles that you faced. Give a little of the detail around the nuance, the depth, the severity, how it happened, was it predictable, etc., so that people really understand why, there were so many challenges in meeting this particular goal, milestone, etc. Second, talk about all the different techniques, tactics you tried to resolve the obstacles that did pop up. It's a good thing to demonstrate your persistence, your creativity, all the different angles you use to attack the problem. And then finally, you want to sum up by highlighting what did you learn in this experience. Yes, it may not have worked out exactly as you wanted in this particular case, but what can you take away from it that's going to make you more valuable to your future employer? Okay, thank you for watching. A quick last word, if you've got interviews coming up, whether they're behavioral interviews and questions like the one we just discussed, or case interviews for consulting or product management or strategy and biz ops roles at tech companies, etc., Rocketblocks has interview prep tools that can help you get into the best interview prep shape of your life. So check us out at www.rocketblocks.me. And of course, we put out a ton of great content on YouTube on a weekly basis. So if you haven't subscribed yet already, please go ahead and do so. There is a big red button below. And once you subscribe, you'll get all our content as soon as it comes out. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.